Welcome to the next session for Aligned 2017, the virtual summit dedicated to all things B2B sales and marketing alignment. I'm Jeremy Boudinot, Director of Marketing at Ambition. I'm very pleased today to be talking with someone who I know very well, who I've actually partnered with a few months ago on a four-part webinar series dedicated to this very topic. So someone who knows the space as well as anybody, best-selling author, consultant, Marylou Tyler, who's the author of Predictable Revenue, Predictable Prospecting, and literally has lived her life helping organizations, sales organizations, align their various teams, build processes that work, and maximize the efficiency in their people and their platforms as well. So Marylou, welcome to the summit. Thank you for being a part of this. I'm excited to chat with you.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah, and the guy add real quick, happy birthday. This is the first visit for the summit. How are you celebrating?
Oh, at my age, it's like I couldn't put the candles on the cake because it would probably burn the whole restaurant down. So it's going to be very subdued with my husband and a glass of champagne. And
your present to our listeners is going to be sort of sharing a few of the most pivotal things that you've taught over the years about how to keep sales teams aligned and keep companies up to date with the most efficient ways to run a B2B outbound campaign and strategies. So start by telling people your background. There's been a number of high points, but give them the story on who you are and the various things you've done over the years.
Okay. First and foremost, I'm coming in from the engineering background. So I'm a computer engineer by trade, which means I love data. I love process, systems, methods, frameworks. I'm all over those. So, the top of funnel where I work and where I spend my time and where my passion lies is really allows me to take my knowledge of that type of engineering and utilize it to statistically improve the pipeline and continually eke out percent improvement by really focusing on what's working, what's not, how to assess it, how to analyze it, how to optimize it, and then finally systematize it so that you guys can focus on what you do best, which is having those conversations, helping prospects understand why they should change from what they're doing now, why select you as their guide, and then why do it now, that sense of urgency.
Absolutely. I love the way you said that. Assess, optimize, and systematize, the imperative to do that as soon as possible and the benefits you'll reap if you do that. Give me an example of a former customer of yours, you don't have to name the name, that's really optimized their process with your help and the benefits that's had on their organization.
Well, it's really amazing because we're working with frameworks and systems, the size of the company is not really as important as having the actual workflows figured out. So when I go in, and one client in particular I'm thinking about, when I ask them, like the back of the napkin, draw me your pipeline, draw your pipeline, your prospecting pipeline. And I want to see what it looks like. And I saw three bubbles. I saw MQL, which is the marketing qualified leads. I saw leads, and then I saw opportunity. So three bubbles, and there was no path of, okay, well, what happens? Where's that rocky road that gets it from an MQL to the opportunity? Or from what kind of leads are we talking about? How are you generating the leads? So it's beautiful because I see this like blank canvas when we first start, no matter who the client is. And then slowly we start assessing, really where these things are coming from. What do our leads look like? Where are we getting them from? How high quality are they? And then we just keep traversing down this very simple yet powerful checklist. So with this client in mind, we did that, and they moved from the three blobs, the three little circles, to a very beautiful multi-channel pipeline that they were able to run a bunch of stuff down. Account-based selling, they did leads-only selling, which is the inside sales where they actually open up the conversation and close it within a few phone calls. We were able to take it from US-based all the way through worldwide by just changing and tweaking some of the conversation pieces that we had defined along the pipeline. So they went from this smallish company to now they're publicly held.
And it's amazing. Yeah, there you go. So it's the fact that they were able to, not just run one type of process, but run several with your help shows that, the versatility that's available today to teams to be able to do that. So talk about what your process was in building that out for them, and sort of the general, very true principles in that can be applied, like you said, no matter how big your organization is, when you're trying to build a roadmap to revenue acceleration.
Well, first and foremost is step one, which is assessment and planning. And, they always say, there's that phrase that says, measure twice, cut once. Well, it has a lot to do with the pipeline too, because we want to plan out as much as possible, run those what if scenarios in our head, maybe do some pilot testing here and there to see if our hunches are paying off. But it's really all about assessing, 5 different areas I like to look at. I like to look at where the leads are, what quality, where they're coming from, how many, things like that. I like to look at the pipeline, the workflow, meaning the day in the life of a business developer in this case. What are they spending their time on? Are we compartmentalizing their ability to single task? Because that's very important for prospecting. Then we, go in that murky water of content. And content for us is not just content assets. It's the behavior of the content, because we have to worry about 5 different levels of behavior when we're having these conversations with people we don't know yet. We're trying to get into our fold. And then lastly, I like to look at the metrics to see how we're progressing both intra-stage and inter-stage, because it's really important that we get a sense of the lag in the pipeline as part of the predictable revenue formula.
Yeah, and I love what you said about intra versus inter, within the actual stage.
Yes.
Happening that's moving along, and then when it's going to the next stage, what does that look like? So talk a little bit more about the micro aspects of those parts of the process.
Well, first of all, this is a pipeline. This is not a lake. So things should not be stagnant, right? This is a moving body of, in this case, leads that are starting at some position and moving through to our desired position, which is eventually close one. So we have to make sure that we have the right intelligence built in so that we can see the movement and also get an understanding of where things are getting gunky, where things are getting stuck. And one of the downfalls of predictable revenue that I thought, was a disservice to our clients in our community was that we didn't really talk about how to get things moving from stage to stage to stage, and also within the stage, what types of metrics are actionable or meaningful for us in order to be able to really acutely see where things are failing and where things are needing assistance from us and a little gentle push in order to get it to go further into the pipeline. So I really look at, the metrics. There are not a lot of them, but they're the real actionable ones that allow us to make these decisions and allow us to come back and say, okay, we need to really analyze this, measure what's going on, make some changes, try it out. And when I say try it out, we always keep our control of what we were doing before, and we test against the control. So this A/B split testing that people talk about is a very big part of what we do when we're working through the optimization pieces.
Very familiar with A/B testing, and from a marketing standpoint, it's very well known. But talk about it from a sales standpoint. Like when you're dealing with your sales process and you're trying to test out, should we be calling more? Should we be focusing on this particular market sector?
Okay. Well, you know how we talked about these stages. And if you think of an assembly line, like say we're building a Ferrari, we're having these really cool, intelligent, smart stations that put the right parts on at the right time and the right, as the car is progressing down. Well, when we're working on content and we're working on sequences and we're trying to figure out how this conversation should take place and what's resonating, what's not, we're able to very simply put in these little markers. They're almost like, they remind me of what they do on the internet with cookies, where they can tell where you were. We can do that as well with the content. We can also track very easily not only the type of conversations, the amount of conversations, but the blend of the conversations, so that we know, in particular, for particular products or services, a lot of questions that come in I see all the time. Should I call first? Should I email first? Blah, 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 blah. The answer is test it and see what's working for you. And that's what we do. So we end up first with the touch sequence, which is the number of times we're going to add value to our prospect's day. And then we go in and look at the behavioral cadence of those sequences to see if we put things in particular spots, is that lag going to be reduced from the time we're able to start that conversation to get it through to qualified op? So it's like Legos. We have these Legos of themes, of behavior, of content, of touches, and we're able to sort of move them around once we get a statistically relevant sampling that gives us a high confidence rate that we can move stuff around now.
Yeah, and can you give us just give us another example? Is there another example of a company that you've worked with that's found a wrinkle or found a strategy on how to sort of use content more effectively?
Yes. In fact, this company was and is responsible for me coming up with and yet another cadence scenario that we're calling intraday calling or immersion calling, because we found out we started with the email only engine, so just touches of email and then warming up the chill, trying to get people to reply. That's the predictable revenue model. Then we added in a little bit of phone, but we still weren't getting it. We still weren't getting in the door with our accounts, and we figured out, okay, these are large accounts. We need to map in and around the organization to find a champion, to find a person who will sponsor us to get in the door. So the client said, well, why don't we just call 5 people within the organization? We'll do a blitz day. That's what they called it, a blitz day. So we did emails 1, 2, and 3 where we sent value, help. And then the 4th thing we did was this immersion calling. It was a phenomenal success. And I would have never known that something like that would have worked had I not been told to do that by my client.
Sure. So that's fascinating. So the cold calling is dead concept.
Oh, no.
Might be premature.
Nothing is dead. And this client is, talk about dead. This client then also creatively said, let's send a postcard. So email number 3 is, it's the postcard now, because they're doing account-based selling. They have their top 250. They call it their, I think they call it top 250. So they can send out postcards, and they added that into the sequence, and that's another game changer for them.
Yeah, and that's I think that what you're talking about is just the differentiation, the creativity, and the strategy is really what matters most. And so going back a step for making those 5 calls, how did they choose which 5 people to call, and why do you think that has such an impact?
Now that is something that's documented. It's even in my new book. It's called the Influence Map, and we basically take in the center, in the bullseye, is your target, the guy, gal that you really would love to have a conversation with, because they're either the decision maker, they can push it through, whatever it is that gives you that reduction of lag in the pipeline and gets your body into that first meeting around the table. But then there's a ring out from that, the bullseye. The ring out from that are people who directly influence our target. And then finally, that last ring are the people who indirectly influence. So they typically are users, gatekeepers. They're people that can give us a warm referral in. So we mapped out for each of our top targeted personas the influence map for both direct and indirect influencers, and that became our blitz, or what I'm calling now immersion calling, in and around the organization.
That makes sense. So you would get someone on the phone, someone with some level of influence.
Exactly. But we had to work harder now. So those people are thinking, wow, this is great. I can just go in and ask for these. No, you still have to. It's a 3-1 rule, everybody who's listening. 3, help to 1, ask. So for every 4 calls or every 4 things you do, 3 are helpful, adding value, just transforming their day, and then 1 is an ask for an appointment, time on the calendar, a reply, whatever it is.
You're adding value, transforming the day. What is value-adding content that's actually having an impact?
It's essentially, there's some samples in the book. Like for me personally, I would send them a should ask questions. Say, here's some of the questions that people who are in your capacity at companies are finding that we, are considering these types of questions. So that you send them that should ask questions, or they go to a website or a landing page and click on that. That's one. An ebook, an infographic. It could be that you give them a checklist, but it's something, when you hit the send button, right before you hit it, you ask yourself, am I going to transform this person's day by this email that I'm sending? Yes or no? If you don't say yes, then don't send it. It's not a help email.
Is this person going to enjoy receiving this email? Is there benefits? Is there actual benefit in here for them?
Benefit for them, or go even a step further. Am I transforming their day? Am I changing their life? I mean, we can't always do that, but that's the level that we want to strive for in every one of our emails that are value added that we send.
And I love the synchronicity here. Our keynote speaker, as everyone knows, for the summit is Gary Vaynerchuk, who has a book called Jab, 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 Right Hook. And it's the exact same principle, that exact principle. Before you ask for something, give them the jabs, give them the value, jab them some value, and then come in once you've really made a difference for them on the front end. What do you see the best sales development teams doing right now to really have an impact and align with marketing, align with sales, and then even maybe working with customer success and existing customers to your referrals, things like that? How does all that fit in to the flow?
Well, the best organizations are really focused on that triangle of leveraging people, process, and technology. So they're not overly dependent on technology. Sales is still a one-on-one, one-to-one, belly-to-belly conversation. So they're focused on that first and foremost, and then they leverage technology and they leverage process where it makes sense so that they can maximize return on effort. And if they focus on maximizing return on effort, that means their workflows are aligned, their content is aligned, the types of content that they send is aligned, and the messaging is all aligned. In addition, they role play. They're constantly trying to perfect that conversation, that why change, why now, why us that everybody's talking about. And they role play as a team. They write together. They talk together. They have all these different scenarios for handling objections. So they just continually fine tune and hone their conversation tracks. That is definitely a team that's going to do well. And you overlay that with adherence to schedule, and you've got it.
I love it. Yeah. And then it kind of just drill down with that. It sounds like it's hustle. They hustle, they collaborate, and they have a laser-like focus on adding value to the customer. That is their focus almost before, along with getting the meeting, that they're intertwined, right?
Right. There's a value grid just in their DNA of how can I change the life of this prospect. And then those companies who master that from a generic point of view start drilling down to the actual persona. And that takes time. You want to first start by getting the overall general messaging in place. And then as quickly as possible, start thinking about those people that you're going to have nose to nose, belly to belly, sitting across the table from, what they need to hear in their language so that they'll be motivated to lean in and move with you and take your hand and have you guide them and gently pull them through the pipeline towards the opportunity.
A member of the leadership team for an inside sales organization with 10 reps and maybe 10 SDRs, and maybe a couple AEs, small team, you're a growing team, and you're looking at this sales and marketing technology landscape that is just utterly massive. Is impossible to try to understand. Tell them if they have a dialer that is dial phone only, and if they have a CRM and they got the hustlers, they got the people, what is the number one sales technology you advise to check out first?
Well, before I'd even suggest something, I would have you all consider what I call the double access or axes, where you want to look at effort and you want to look at impact. So you want to be able to take all the potential things you could do to improve your organization and improve your department and look at it on the double axis chart of effort, lower high, and impact, lower high. Up in the upper right-hand corner of high impact and low effort would be what I consider the follow-up technology. So the ability for software, you feed it your members, in this case your prospect, and you decide the touch points and you decide the content and you decide behaviorally how you're going to move these people through. and you put it into this wonderful predictive engine so that it can tell you when you come in on Tuesday, here's all the calls you need to make, here's where you are in the sequence, here's what you talked about last time to these guys, and this is what you should be doing today.
I'm not sure you realize you did this, but you just described Ambition's productivity quadrant as far as the high activity to activity output grid. That's I love it. Thank you. I'm not sure you did it on purpose, but that's exactly.
No, it's just my whole life is driven by the double access chart.
I love it. If people don't know that, that's a big feature of ours, that where we are taking all of your metrics from your CRM, phone calls, emails, that's activity. We're putting that on the x-axis and we're correlating it with your y-axis, which is your goals, revenue, meetings, whatever those are inside your organization.
Yeah, we're working with the client on the East Coast right now, and they have so many things wrong, so you get this list and it's just overwhelming and you just get stressed. So if we organize it by high impact, low effort, and then work it down to high effort, low impact, then all of a sudden things start becoming more manageable. So I definitely would do that with all of my clients, just to try to get them on this sort of less overwhelm, more we can get this done. And that's why I use that double axis chart. And that's why you guys probably have your grid.
Yeah, absolutely. And it applies across departments. We're here. This is the first week for our new marketing hire, who's an incredible guy leading growth marketing for us. And that's how we're prioritizing things too. Let's start with the easy stuff that's going to have a major impact.
Biggest bang for the buck. And in our industry, it's follow-up. It's still, the data is still showing, I'm not just spouting off, the data shows that we're still not following up smartly and succinctly and consistently. So that's why I think that's the next step that I would put in, is something to help us automate that process so that all we need to focus on is having those fabulous conversations with real people.
Do you have any data points to sort of talk about what is the appropriate number of follow-ups and things, anything like that you can share?
Yeah, like in the book, we did a bunch of graphs for people, but it's still in the 10 to 12 range of follow-up, where the blend of voice and email, or now with direct mail coming back into the fold, is changing a little bit. But you can't go wrong if you at least do 10 to 12. And again, we're doing that 3 to 1, help, ask, or the left hook, whatever you were talking about. Gary was, I'm not a boxer, so, but yeah, that. And if we're still doing that, then, I like to get my folks to a 22-day business cycle. Some people push back. A lot of people push back because they still haven't gotten their arms around the concept that we're adding value. So that would be 2 emails a week and then follow up on phone calls to fill in the rest. But 22-32 business day cycle, it works really well.
I love it. Yeah, 4 to 6 weeks. It's aggressive. And they'll know who you are, and if you're targeting correctly, and like you've talked about with figuring out the persona on a generic level within the organization, then you're going to be effective, right?
And you can 3x your predictable revenue response rate. So if you're getting 7 to 9% response rate from predictable revenue, you can be comfortable pushing for 27, 37% response rate over the course and aggregate of those touches.
Wow. 27%. Wow.
Yeah, in some cases it's higher. I mean, it depends on the persona. But what this means is for every 100 records now, instead of wasting 93, you're going to only, be wasting 100 minus 27. But still, it's not a lot, but your list fatigue will go down and all these wonderful things happen as the result of adding more value into your sequence.
Kind of final questions for you. Who are the key people in an organization who can really start driving this? Like sales operations, VP of sales, you have VP of marketing. Where are all those coming together in fixing this?
It's funny you say that, because I work a lot of upmarket accounts and it's still fiefdom. So it's hard sometimes to get ops and marketing and sales sitting together and holding hands at the table. But if they, the smaller companies, if we can get all 3 of them in and start working on this as a common goal with a common thread and a common through line, they each have their value. And they each work together because the feedback from ops goes straight to marketing to make better content that allows the lag to reduce. And sales is on the phone having those conversations. So they're learning the language, they're learning the pain points, the challenges, the hopes and dreams. All that channels back into marketing.
What's the number one principle that should apply and people should be applying within their organizations?
Well, this is coming from an engineer, so it's going to be, it's going to be test, and it's going to be assess, and it's going to be optimize. I mean, it's going to be that whole kind of lean DMAIC model where you're constantly going back and trying to eke out better percentages, more meaningful conversations, and using your analytics to tell you objectively where you need to go, as opposed to using your gut all the time, because it doesn't always work that way.
One of our engineers, who's a Harvard PhD in atomic physics and worked for the Department of Defense and all that, he actually wrote an ebook for us called The Ambition Way, which talks about the scientific method, applying the scientific method to sales process optimization. That's really just what you're talking about right there, right?
Yeah, and since I focus mostly on exclusively on top of funnel, we have a lot more records that we're working with, so we have a lot more statistical relevance in the work that we do. So yes, I rely on data. I love data.
I do too. It's what keeps me sane.
Indeed.
So, Marylou, this has been excellent. Go check out the Sales Development Accelerator on ambition.com, on our blog, ambition.com/blog, which we have a 4-part series video presentation with you that's excellent. So check that out, and then Marylou, give them the insight on where they can get your podcasts, your videos, all that sort of stuff.
Sure. You can go to MarylouTyler.com, and I have my podcast in the top nav bar there, and then there's a special page, MarylouTyler.com/swag, SWAG, that is available for people who have been reading the books and want more information and more detail. Checklists, there's worksheets, there's completed examples, everything's in there. So if you really want to be better than me and get in there and apply this stuff, you can certainly do that.
I encourage everyone to check those out and to get your books. Predictable Prospecting came out last year. Amazing book. And I think everyone knows about predictable revenue. Great stuff, Marylou. This has been awesome. And everybody, thank you for attending this session. This is Jeremy Boudinais, Director of Marketing for Ambition, signing out. We will see you for the next session for Aligned, the 2017 Virtual Summit on all things B2B sales and marketing aligned.